Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. All right, welcome to our week number 8 wrap up. Is that what we're at? I'm not even sure, but it's the last full week of February because next week March starts already. What the hell? That's okay, I'm excited for March. March is my birthday month, so we're always excited for that to come around. 31 this year, wow. Not thinking about my life choices. 31 is great. We're good. We're happy to be here. So quick little week wrap up of stuff that happened. I had my first full paid sponsorship video. You guys were so supportive of that. If you haven't watched it yet, please go check out my one-handed read recommendations because that was a sponsored video and I want to do really well so that they want to sponsor me again. It was great, so go check that out. Also make sure you check out the Etsy shop if you're interested in any book sleeves for you. Yeah, this week was great. There was a lot of Patreon books involved because that's usually what happens near the end of the month. And yeah, it was just really good. I got through 11 books. A few of them were rereads and we're going to dive into them. First, we do have a new channel member to welcome. We have Amber, who joined at the Fated Friend level. Amber, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the early access to videos and just all the fun things that come with being a Fated Friend because it's so awesome. No new Patreons this week, but we do have a lot of free members checking out. That is something you can always do. You can join my Patreon just as a free member. There's also free trials that are available that will get you access to some stuff to check it out to see if you want to support me there. So definitely go check that out because I do post a lot of stuff for everyone there as well. I'll do announcements that everyone can see. You'll get some behind the scenes stuff that everyone gets to see. So, there's still a lot of good stuff there even if you're not able to contribute financially. You can still be in the know. So let us get into these books. So the first one we're starting the week off with is actually a reread from the previous week. I reread Aldo by Melanie Harlow, which was a book that I really enjoyed earlier this month. I'm on her ARC team and we also got access to the audiobooks for this. And so I went right ahead and dived into it. So yeah, I don't have a ton of new stuff to say about this except the audiobook of this one was narrated by John Lane and Maxine Mitchell, and they did really great. This audiobook was only, I think, 5 hours long or so, so I just blew through a reread of it, and I enjoyed myself so much. I love these characters, and we'll talk about them some more in a little bit here. In just a minute, you'll see. Okay, next up was actually Devious Obsession by S. Massery. And speaking of my Patreon, this was the Patreon pick for February, so I will not be reviewing this book here. That review is available on my Patreon. And as I said, there is a free tier there, and that tier is the $7 level, which has my exclusive reviews. So you can actually go see this review for free if you want to, if you check out my Patreon down below. But this was a dark hockey college romance. I've read books 1 and 3 in the series, and this one was picked for Patreon because it is a step sibling romance. Technically, it's one of those that it's barely, the step sibling part isn't even the most taboo part of this book. So yeah, definitely check out my review of this if you want to know my deeper thoughts on it. Then the audiobook for Resisting Maxu was finally available. So this is book 6 in the Clickanian series, and I'm obsessed with this series. I love it. But I love particularly the audiobooks. They're narrated by Stephen Dexter, and he does an amazing job. So this book was already out, so is the next one. But I was waiting patiently for the audiobooks to come out. So I don't know, though, the cliffhanger at the end of this one, not be able to wait because there's going to be some crazy shit that happens in Ruling Strickland. So, Strickland, whatever. But Resisting Maxu, of course, this is a fated mate alien romance. And in this one, we have Meg, who is one of the humans who is actually happy that she was kidnapped. She was in a very like religiously strict area. She had been kind of pushed into marrying the husband that she married because they fooled around when they were young, and then they were like guilted into being married. So she's been in this 10-year marriage with this man who they just were never meant to be. So she's not mad that she got kidnapped, but she is a little bit like wary of, you know, any of like the marriages that the women are encouraged to be a part of. She doesn't want to find her fated mate because she's afraid of being locked into a man again. Like, she just doesn't want that to happen. So unfortunately for her, like, that is going to happen, but you know what? It's going to be good. It's going to be a good time. And then we have Maxu, who he also isn't too interested in finding a mate, but when he is actually getting in trouble, he has to do some time in like their jail because he broke the rules. He catches a whiff of his fated mate as she happens to be leaving to go on a tour that the humans are doing. They're doing a tour through the planets so that other aliens can have a chance to like meet them and everything. And they still force him into jail for a few months because they're like, you need to pay for what you did, and when your time is up, then you can try and go find her. So it is extremely painful for the men to be away from their mate, and it actually can start to make them go mad. So I will say, it's really cruel of them to do that to him. Even though he's trouble, they could have still let him go meet his mate first, but there you go. So our heroine just goes about her tour, getting to meet all the different places. But meanwhile, there's a lot of unrest happening in the background because a lot of the other planets species are very upset with the queen, who has like kept the women from them. They feel like she's keeping secrets and all this stuff. And so there's some unrest that's brewing. And when Maxu finally gets loose, he is on his way to get his woman. And of course, there's lots of, hoops to go through. And then of course, by the time he finds her, he's almost mad with the need to like be with her. So they're definitely going to have to talk through some of their issues. So this was just so much fun. I listened to this in like all one stretch, like I have with most of her books. And like I said, there's quite the cliffhanger because Strickland, I didn't know who this was, right? Like all the other guys so far, I'd like heard of them because actually most of them are part of the same family. They all were a part of this one dad's family. So we've heard of the brothers, even if it's in just a little pieces of it. But Strickland, I hadn't heard of him yet. And when he gets introduced in this book and I heard his name spoken, I was like, oh, I know that the 7th book is called Ruling Strickland. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So when that man was introduced, I was like, oh my God, I'm so interested. So if you've read it, I don't want to spoil it at all, but the next audiobook doesn't even have a release date yet. So I don't know if I'll be able to wait, but like also my calendar is so freaking packed for the next little bit that it might be okay. I might be able to make myself wait. We'll see. We'll see. All right, next up, I read The Arc of Devious Vow by Jager Cole. This is already out now. This is book 2 in his Venomous God series. And yeah, I'm not signing up for the arc of the next book, which I feel a little sad about because I was so bummed that I hadn't gotten arcs for some of the other books in the Dark Heart series. And then for this series, I was getting the arcs again, and I was so excited, but I'm not really enjoying this series. We're back to just like super mean characters, okay? Like this one, it's an enemies to lovers, and it also was a bit of a repeat of kind of a story from one of the Dark Hearts where like they went to the same college and they were into each other, but then there's a misunderstanding between both of them that of course someone else pushed on them, someone else got in the way and manipulated both of them, and they've hated each other for these 10 years. And then the book starts and our heroine is actually in a marriage with a man that she hates. She was forced into this marriage with him. They don't actually sleep together, but he does torture her. This man gets blowjobs in front of her all the time. Like seriously, every other scene was him making her sit there while a prostitute, he fucked her mouth or fucked her ass or something in front of her to humiliate her somehow. And that was just any time we were seeing him. He even did it in front of the male love interest in this one when he's like setting up his scheme and he fucks a girl in front of him and is trying to get him to join in with them or whatever. Like it was just, I was like, okay, we get it. He's a villain. We don't need to see him fucking people all the time. Like, it was just, ugh, it was gross. I mean, it's supposed to be gross. There's that. It is. But I was just like, okay, we get it. We get it. After the first time of it, you could have just said, and he fucked a girl in front of me or whatever. But yes, our heroine is married at the beginning. She doesn't sleep with her husband. She's never been with him, but she is a mafia princess, and she was forced into this marriage. And he wants to use her for some information. And so she is actually a lawyer. She's went to school to be a lawyer. And so is the male love interest, Alistair. He's a lawyer. And her husband uses his vast amounts of money to get her a position at this law firm. And she ends up being the assistant to Alistair, like a law assistant, like forces that to happen by just throwing money at the law firm. And of course, he has reasons. He wants his wife to get certain files that are in Alistair's office. And so he's really pushing her to do that. And so of course, when she's in forced proximity with Alistair, all of their sexual feelings that they've been ignoring all this time, like, just come up to the top. And pretty soon they are having this affair, which doesn't really feel like an affair because, again, her husband, we get it. He's awful. He fucks other women. He's never fucked her, whatever. But just the way Alistair is so cruel to her, and then you find out, like, why they were split up, and you're just like, oh, we were so led astray, and, like, I don't know, guys. So I gave this one 4 stars because it was an arc. But I should have just rated it how I really felt it was. I would have given this one a 3. But as I said, I'm not going to ask for any more arcs. I'm not saying I won't ever read any more of J.R. Cole, but, like, I didn't find much enjoyment in really either of the previous 2. Like, the first one was okay, and I did rate that one pretty well too. But this time with this one, I'm like, nope, this is the track he's going down. I'm really just not interested. And you know what? I had a brief but hot love affair with J.R. Cole's books, and they're just not in my style right now. They're just not. And so we'll let them go. It's okay. I can move on. I have plenty of other authors I love. And I hope that you guys who found J.R. Cole through me, that you will still love his books. But I just don't love that level of a mean hero where they are like, I'm going to destroy you. I hate you, bitch. And they, like, call them, like, I just don't want that. It's not for me. So yeah. It was a 3.5 on the spice scale. It had abuse. There is miscarriage mentioned. There's a threat of assault all the time. And yeah, the hero is just very mean. And I'm not here for it. But going from one mean hero, we now go to maybe the sweetest hero that I read this month. And that is, I read the arc of Jump On 3 by J. Wolfe. I know I have so many other arcs that come before this book does, but I had to read it. You know, J. Wolfe, Julia Wolfe, she's my queen. And we had another 6-star read with Jump On 3. Okay, this is book 3 in the Savage Academy. And I will say with this one, okay, I know with, like, P.S. You're Intolerable, you could jump right into that one. You know, and what is it with her third books in the series? This is the third series that the third book has been a 6-star read for me. I just realized that. That's so fun. I love that, because it was in Savage University, the third book. It was in the Boss one. Wow, I just forgot the name of that series. The Harder They Fall, book 3. P.S. You're Intolerable. And then this one is book 3. So, okay, so with this one, you do, like, at least need to read book 2 to read book 3. Because this is a case of there's twin sisters. And book 2, we understand the backstory of this heroine, who she has autism. She has some pretty strong traits of it as well. She does a lot of masking, but her and her sister are very, very close. And her sister has made a lot of sacrifices for her to help her sister. She doesn't see them as sacrifices because she loves her twin, and their family is so not understanding of what they've been through. They are very rich girls because, I mean, Savage Savage Academy, you need to be pretty wealthy to send your kids there. So they're all kind of rich kids to a certain degree. But sorry, my brain just like blah, blah, blah. Evelyn, she has done a lot of masking, and she's really trying to hide a lot of her pain in this one because her sister has made sacrifices for her before. They've moved schools because she's been bullied. Their parents and their brother think that this is all a game. Like, they refuse to acknowledge that their daughter has some struggles and that she needs some, you know, help to make things work more smoothly for her. Okay? She has things that she likes very much to be a certain way to help her get through the day. And we see a lot of that setup in book 2, because that is the sister's book. So again, I really recommend you at least read these two wrongs, or wait, these two were, I can't even remember. Here's, like, read the second book at least before you read this one, okay? Because I know that when I gush about a book, everyone will say, can I just read this one? And with this one, you really can't. You need to read the previous one, which was good. That one has the sport of fencing in it. This one has the sport of swimming in it. I love that Julia Wolf does kind of like different sports than like normal. And the first one was, I think, soccer. And in like each case of this series, like, I think both people do the sport that they are, you know, they're just in the women's or the men's of it. I think. I can't remember if the first heroine does soccer or not, but I think she does. But anyway, they're swimming in this one. And so Evelyn loves to swim. And it's called Jump on 3 too, because she's trying to get used to, like, she wants to be able to jump off the diving board, but she gets a little bit scared. And so Ivan is our hero, and he is actually Russian. It becomes pretty clear throughout that he is the son of a Russian, like, oligarch. Not quite fully mafia, but almost. Like, we're almost tugging with that string right there. And so he's going to this school, and he goes to the school, but he also still has work he has to do for his dad too. So there's actually a nightclub that his father co-owns with someone who, if you are a deep cut Julia Wolf reader, you will know who the man is that he co-owns this with. And so Ivan goes and does work there a few nights a week. He has to work at that place. So that's something that happens. But Ivan, also it's important to read book 2 because Evelyn's sister actually had a thing for Ivan in book 2. And before she was interested in her hero, she was interested in Ivan because they're friends and they would study together. And she made a move on him, and Ivan was like, I'm sorry, I just see you as a friend. Like, I love being your friend, but that's all that it is. And so that also puts a barrier up because Evelyn knows that her sister liked Ivan. And so even though, like, her sister's literally dating someone else, is in a good relationship with that guy, and then Ivan and her start spending more and more time together, both on the bus to swim meets. Also, there's a fun little game they play with each other about the study room that they stay in. Ivan messes with her a little bit. It's kind of cute, actually. And yeah, they just start to get to know each other. And one of the things that happens is he has to kind of overcome the fact that her sister liked him. So this is one of those that it's so hard to explain, like, why it's so good. There's so many beautiful moments with this couple, and just like Ivan, you know, finding out how things like work best for her and just doing them without even asking. And, you know, of course, she's really blunt. She's really to the point. So she'll just say when she wants something. I love that about their sexual relationship once it happens, is she's a virgin. And he actually hasn't been with that many women. He hasn't been just like sleeping around, even though, right? Like, think of who his father is. Think of the typical setup of if it was like an oligarch's son. But he has only been with a couple women too, which again, I think is realistic. Like, they're only 20. Not every hot guy has like banged the whole cheerleading team just because they're rich and hot. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not always how it is. And so I like that about him. And, you know, she says for her, she's like, I really need to be, because again, if you read book 2, you know that there was someone trying to get in Evelyn's pants in that book, and she was just like not ready to do that. And there's a point in this where she tells Ivan, like, I'm not ready to have sex because I have to be emotionally involved. And he's like, same for me. Like, I also want to be emotionally involved if I do that too, because he's like, I've had sex when I wasn't, and like it didn't feel right. And I just love the emotional intelligence. Okay, we love it. You don't have to be 40 years old to know that about yourself. And I just appreciated that. So anyway, I'm probably doing a horrible job about this one. I know that I'll talk about it 50 more times this year, so you'll have a chance to want to read it. But you know, that type of hero that you will have seen, you know, like if you read P.S. You're Intolerable or any other of Julia Wolf's books, her heroes are obsessed and adore and are in love with their women. And it's usually the women who have to get like on board with what's happening. And that is definitely the case in this one too. And Ivan is just so patient, but it does also force Evelyn to grow a little bit. It forces her out of her comfort zone a little bit to know that, like, you know, sometimes she has to take the step and then there'll be someone there to catch her. And so it was beautiful. It was beautiful, and I gave it 6 stars. I cried multiple times, and that's always a good sign. This was a 2.5 on the spice scale, and there is some bullying in here in this, and it is not from the hero at all. There is high school type bullying that happens in here, and some of it to an extreme degree. So be prepared for that. Okay, moving along. Let me pick up a book. So I did reread The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This was annotated for a patron. I haven't read this in so long. One thing I did find out though, okay, if you've purchased these versions of the books, which this is actually pretty cute for a recover. It's not bad. I mean, the original covers of it were just like, you know, were just parts of a female body anyway, so this is cute. But these were actually like remastered, as it were. They were re-edited. I found that out when I talked with Madison the other day, which I'll tell you why I talked to Madison Fox in just a minute. But I was telling her that I just reread this and how much I loved it. And she's like, well, we actually did a like re-edit of it to like update some terms that were in them and just to make sure it was good and everything. So if you look inside, you'll actually see that it says copyright 2015 and 2021. And that's because they did do like a re-edit of this. So I didn't even notice which things are. I don't believe at all that they changed parts of the story with them. I think they just updated some of the wording and things like that for it, because I remember loving this the first time I read it, and I loved it this time when I read it as well. So this is about Garrett and Hannah, and this is about Hannah, who she is a music major and she was raped in high school, and now being at college, she, you know, hasn't really felt attracted to a man since then. It ruined a relationship that she tried to have before because she couldn't orgasm with a man. She was just too much in her head. It gave her certain flashbacks and she couldn't do it. And then we have Garrett, who is a star of the hockey team. He's captain. He's amazing. We love Garrett. Oh my God. Love Garrett. And he is almost failing one of his classes, and he sees that Hannah got an A on the test that he didn't pass. He's not a horrible student. He's just, this class is really hard, and he has to have a certain grade average if he can stay on the team. And so he begs Hannah to tutor him, and she's like, I have too much going on. I can't tutor you. And so they go back and forth with this for a little while. And finally, Garrett discovers that there's a guy she has her eye on. She has her eye on this dude. I don't remember his name. I think he's a football player, though. And Garrett's like, aha, I will help you get a date with him and be dating him if you will tutor me. And he's like, we're going to fake date, because if you fake date me, everyone will pay attention to you, which he's like, it's just a fact. I'm not bragging. It's the truth. So they begin fake dating, and she's tutoring him. And then eventually the fake dating leads to, he helps her with her sexual dysfunction she feels like she has as well. And it's just beautiful. This becomes like a friends to lovers and a fake dating, and I just adored them. I loved revisiting it. It was still a 5-star. It's a 2.5 on the spice scale. They do have, of course, there's the mention of her a sexual assault and rape and drugging that happened to her, and then there's PTSD, and there is an abusive parent in here. So there's that. Then I reread Devil in Spring by Lisa Kleypas. This, of course, was for a patron as well. I've had so much fun revisiting some of the Robinells, even though I'm doing it in like a weird order. It's fine. This one is about Pandora and Gabriel. Gabriel is, of course, the son of Sebastian St. Vincent, the devil, the devil in winter, as it were, and this is Devil in Spring. And so, unfortunately for Pandora, who has big dreams of being a businesswoman, she's working on a game that she is created and that Winterborn is actually helping her to produce and everything. doesn't go too well when she gets stuck behind a settee and Gabriel has to pull her out. And when someone comes in, it appears that he has been doing something to her and now she's ruined. And so that leads her, mostly like him and his family and her family are like, well, you should probably get married because she's compromised. But it leads to Gabriel having to convince her to marry him because she's just like, no, I don't need to. No, I don't need to. I'll be fine. I don't need to marry you. I don't care if I'm ruined. And he's like, yeah, but it will also ruin my reputation if we don't get married. So, but he has to go about kind of winning her over. So I would also consider Pandora a bit neurodivergent as well. If you've read it, you know what I mean. It's nothing too over the top, but there definitely is like certain ways that she thinks about things that lead me to believe she was inspired a bit by some neurodivergence. But love this book. I gave this one a 4. It's a 2 on the spice scale. And there is a little bit of slight bondage in this one, though. It is some of the tamest stuff I've ever read, for sure. All right, then I read An Arc of Roman by Melanie Harlow. So this is book 2 in the Men of the Falls duet, and this one is about Roman, who, if you read Aldo, you'll know all about him. And I was so excited. So this one picks up when actually Aldo and, is her name, what's her name? I just forgot her name. But anyway, when Aldo and his wife are on their honeymoon, so they're gone, and Aldo Roman has a woman who owes him some money. Her name is Marianne, and she owes like $50,000 to the casino, and so she gets brought in, you know, and he's swinging his hammer around and is like, all right, if you ain't gonna pay, then you're gonna pay in a different way, you know, because he still is a businessman, and she owes money, and she's like, I'll give you my sister. My sister's very beautiful. She can pay off my debt. And Roman is incensed. He's like, I don't deal in human flesh. Go peddle your wares to someone else. You owe me $50,000. And in fact, the interest goes up every day. So you need to handle this. So he sends her away in disgust. And he happens to be a little worried about this sister. He doesn't know why he feels a little guilty or any of that, but he ends up looking up who her sister is. Her name is Effie, and she actually owns a cute little diner. And she used part of her inheritance from her mother. Her mother had died, and she used some of that money to open this diner. And so she has this sweet little place she works. So Roman actually goes to this diner and says hello, and he leaves her with a very cryptic message. He says, you know, if your sister comes to ask you for help, say no. And he leaves her with his card, and that's it. And then he goes. And so she finds this very odd. Then I think it's just like a day or two later, Marianne shows up with a bag full of cash, drops it at him, and says, here you go, here's your money. And he's like, how did you get this money? And she's like, I'm not going to tell you. Here's your money. I'm out of here. And so she goes, she books it. She's gone. He immediately is very worried. And he has a bad feeling about how she got the money. And he's also feeling a little guilty because he feels like he might have given her the idea. And he looks through the cash and he notices that it is like marked. And he knows whose cash that it is, and it is from this actually like American mafia situation, and he knows that this Marianne has sold her sister to this other mafia, and he is like feels so guilty, and he's pissed that this woman did this. And so it turns out that the business card that he'd given Effie actually has a tracking device in it. So why did I whisper that? It has a tracking device in it. And so he's trying to find her. Wherever the location is that she is, the tracker's not able to like get through, but he starts doing some digging. He does some scrounging around, and he figures out where she is. So the whole beginning of this book is he rescues Effie and brings her to the hotel, right? And now he's keeping her captive for her own good. So it's funny because there's a note in the beginning of this book that this is the type of kidnapping story that she was trying to write when she wrote My Favorite Kidnapper, which if you've read, it's it's a kidnapping rom-com. Like, it's funny and super sexy and involves cake baking. But this one is definitely darker. I won't spoil some of it, but there's some tough stuff to read in the beginning of this book. But then this becomes a kidnapping, as I said, where Roman doesn't understand why he feels so drawn to Effie, but also he wants to protect her, and so she can't leave because he may have stolen her back from these people, but they aren't going to take that lightly. And he's also just like so pissed that any of this happened. And of course, because he's a big tough mafia guy, as he starts to have feelings for her, he's just a little bamboozled by how much he has feels, you know? He's that type of dude. That's what we're dealing with. So yeah, I adored this so much. You won't be surprised. It has that same feel as Aldo, where it's very soft in a lot of ways, okay? Like, this is a soft one. Even though, like, there's harsh stuff that we see. I'm not saying that it's not without triggers or without hard stuff, but the way that Roman is with Effie, he's very soft, and his soft side that he doesn't even know that he had comes out for her. And I love that type of guy. Like, that's my favorite. And again, that's the type of like Neva Altaj vibe that I'm talking about, you know, where I said it about Aldo, where there are harsh things happening, but the relationship between the couple feels so like soft and squishy. And also the hero's having to deal with the fact that like, I don't have feelings for stuff. And like, the guys who fall for a woman, they're dumb. And then here's a sweet, pretty woman, and he's like, oh, but I want to protect her. So I love it. So yeah, I gave it 5 stars. This one was a bit sexier than Aldo. It is a lot longer too. Like, Aldo is almost a novella length. It's only 220 pages. And this one is 400. Like, it's a proper size novel. And I do like that better because it does make the pacing of their relationship a little bit better. Whereas in Aldo, we're kind of rushing through it because like Aldo's book, again, if you've read the notes, like, she wrote Roman and it was going to be like a standalone book, but the characters of Aldo and his wife in the background, everybody wanted their story because they were so compelling. So she wrote Aldo's story first and then Roman's came out. So there's a whole thing about how this happened. But yeah, loved this book. Highly recommend it. Just so fun. Okay, next up, I read a beta copy of Forbidden Game by Madison Fox. So the last time I read a beta copy for her, I was very like hush hush about the book before, you know, because I didn't know how things were going to go with her release, and it was the first time I ever beta read, so I didn't blah blah. But this time, like, since this series is out and known, I'll talk a little bit more about it. I'm still going to be, you know, because it is a beta copy and there may be things that get changed, although you know, if you read Good Game and maybe you read the acknowledgments, I had some notes last time that really kind of changed a lot of where the story went. This time around, I don't think that will be the case. This was very strong. I had a great time reading this. I really did. I was smiling so hard. It was pretty long though. I hope that it gets like tightened up a little bit, but I also had a different type of document than what will be formatted, so it might not be as long when that is. But anyway, Forbidden Game will be book 2 in the system, and this one is about Parker, aka English Coffee. So this is our like British member. He's the blue mask, and he is also a billionaire and a like heir to this like fortune and everything. And then there is Sydney, who is the publicist for the system. And she really keeps those boys on a tight leash because they get into lots of trouble. And so she's really riding them hard. And Parker has been pining for her for the whole time she's worked for them. He's been pining for her. And throughout the story, we see all these little things that he's done over time to like make her life easier without her even knowing. And of course, she's very resistant to being with him because, you know, it's against her contract to fraternize, but also, you know, this job is super important to her and she's afraid of it not working out and like all these things. So definitely is that like, it's a forbidden relationship. Surprise, surprise with the name of it. But it's also a real slow burn. This one is a really good slow burn. But Parker he's just so like different when he's pursuing Sydney than he is of his like persona as part of the system, and I just really enjoyed this one. It was so good. And yeah, I had a really fun talk with Madison after I finished it. which is honestly like my favorite part of beta reading, is getting to like talk with her after I read it and everything. So I love it. I won't tell you when she told me it's coming out because I don't know if that will work out or not, but it is currently scheduled for May. There is a hope that it will be earlier than that, so we'll see. And hopefully we'll be getting the cover reveal soon. I'm very excited about just all of it. I think this book is just, I can tell how much she improved from the first to the second book. Like, so much. I loved it. So, I mean, it's tough to rate a beta book, but because I just adore her, like, I gave it 5 stars. It's a 3 on the spice scale for this one, and I hope you will give it a try when you can. Support a fellow booktuber who's making it, man. She's doing it. Okay. Then for Patreon, I read Keepsake by Serena Bowen, annotated this for a patron. I have only read 2 books within the True North series. I've actually read book 1 and like book 5, which was a crossover with the Brooklyn series that she has. So I like vaguely know about this place, apple orchard and farm that is in here, but I don't like fully know everything. Like I definitely remembered Griffin and Audrey like once I was reading this, but I didn't remember anything else. So this one is about Zach, who was a member of a cult who like he escaped when he was 19 and he made his way to Vermont because there was other members of that previous cult who like lived there, and then he was given a job and he's lived there for I think 4 or 5 years now. And then we have Lark, who is close friends. She used to be roommates and she's close friends with one of the Shipley kids. And she has actually just gotten out of a very difficult ordeal. So she is like she was a rich girl, and she is like a philanthropist and a volunteer worker, and she was sent from an organization to Guatemala to do some work there, and she actually ended up getting kidnapped and held for 3 weeks because, I mean, that is a thing that happens in other countries is Americans get kidnapped and held for ransom because a lot of those organizations have kidnapping insurance because it's literally a thing that happens. But her kidnappers didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and it took a very long time to get her rescued. So yeah, she was kidnapped for 3 weeks, lived through a lot of really traumatic things. And so she got home. She's actually only been back in the States for like less than a month, and her parents are driving her crazy. They're just checking on her every 5 minutes, and she's just really overwhelmed. So she's invited by her friend to come and stay at the orchard for apple picking season, and she jumps at it because she needs a break from just the constant smothering of her family, who are of course well-meaning. Her parents are very well-meaning. They love her, but they are kind of overwhelming her a bit. So she stays there, and she's actually in the bunkhouse with the men, but like she gets her own room in it, and then there's a bunkhouse, and her and Zach end up getting assigned to work the farmers markets together, and she picks apples with him, and it's a slow burn. Zach is actually a virgin hero because there wasn't a lot of sex happening in the cult that he was in. And even though he's now lived outside of there, he hasn't really like put himself out there. But he's this very, very sweet man. He's very attracted to Lark, and they spend a lot of time together. So he definitely has affection for her, but she's dealing with a lot. She's not exactly looking for a relationship, but she also can't help the attraction she feels for him. So I really enjoyed this book. I did. I gave this 4 stars though, because a lot of the trigger warnings with this one have to do with mental health. There's PTSD, and it just was so much heavier than I was expecting it to be. I don't know. I forgot that this series was a heavier one for Serena Bowen because like there was tough stuff in this, and it was hard to push myself through. If I wasn't reading it for Patreon, I probably like wouldn't have, even though this is very well thought out, and like, again, it wasn't bad, but I gave this one 4 stars just for that, and it was a 2.5 on the spice scale. And of course, there is trigger warnings for PTSD, mental health things, yet trauma from the kidnapping. It's all there. Okay, and then the last book was another audio arc that I had, which was really fun. So this was The Wild One by Daisy Jane. So you'll know I've been reading some Daisy Jane in the last like 6 5-6 months or so. Well, I've read some of her a long while ago too, but she writes erotic contemporary. There's nothing else to call it. The sex is a big focus in these books. But I had heard about the Wild One when I was talking about a lactation kink. You guys sent this one to me. And I actually had already read book 2 in this series, which was recommended by a viewer for my 12 Recs from 12 Friends. And I liked that one. That one was about, was that Griff? Was his name Griff? Or Atticus. It was Atticus and then the friends of, and they were the friends of these characters. So like Atticus is Beau's friend and the girl is Beck's friend, right? And they're forced to spend time around each other because they're friends. But this one is a single mom, reverse age gap. She's 37, he's 26. And in the beginning of this book, she has a 8-month-old son, and she is divorced. Her husband served her divorce papers the same day that she found out she was pregnant. So she's done her whole pregnancy and the first 8 months without the husband at all. He signed away all his rights. He wants nothing to do with his kid. He's moving on with his life. And she is living in this new small town close to her parents. Her parents are absolutely delightful. They're just so warm and comfortable. I love them so much. But her very first day in this town, her air conditioner breaks in her vehicle. And so she takes it to Wrench King's to get it fixed. And Beau is there, and Beau is hungover as hell. He lost his father about a year ago, and he has been depressed since then. He's become an alcoholic. It's really sad to see. And he really kind of offends Beck this day. He says some stuff, he puts his foot in his mouth, he embarrasses himself. It's awkward, and it really kind of shakes him out of it, because he's like, I don't want to be like this wouldn't be honoring to my dad. I don't know what I'm doing here. And so he actually gets sober, and he apologizes to Beck when she comes to pick up her vehicle, and he's very sorry. He's also very attracted to Beck. So after the awkward apology, he ends up wanting to know more about her, and she doesn't really take him seriously because, again, he's 26, she's 37, and a single mom, and she's got a lot on her plate, and she's just like, I don't have time to be somebody's toy right now. I'm busy. But he's so into her. And he just thinks she's so beautiful. He thinks her son is so cute. So she's actually doing ride sharing part-time until she gets her new business up and running. And so he ends up calling her for a ride to and from work every day for a month or 2 weeks, something. It's a month worth. And he keeps asking her out periodically, and she's saying no and everything. But eventually she's ready to start her business, and so she is going to be done ride sharing, and so she agrees to go on a date with him, and that kind of fully starts it. Now, the reason why this is erotic romance, which I knew going in, so it wasn't too bad, but his dick is so into her, which I know it's hot in some ways, but it also was it got to be a lot, because his cock was filling, his cock was twitching, his dick took notice. The way that his dick had its own life going on is that kind of thing that lately I'm not a huge fan of it. But he is charming as hell, okay? He was super charming, he was super sweet. And again, this one is the lactation kink, okay? And it full on has there's some nursing kink that goes with it. He will nurse from her sometimes, and whoo, it's hot. This is hot, okay? And to listen to this book, because again, I was listening to the audio arc of it. This is read by Jason Clark and actually Daisy Jane. She narrates a lot of her own audiobooks, which is great. She has a beautiful voice. But listening to Jason Clark talking about this woman's tits, oh my God. Whew, it's a lot. So it's intense. It's sexy as hell, but only those of you who can handle some very erotic novels should do this one, because the first half might be calm and everything, but in the second half, we're whipping out those tits and milking them every little bit, okay? So just be prepared, okay? Be prepared. But he was so sweet with the kid and with her, he just loved her so much, and it was a really beautiful book, but it was pretty erotic too. So I gave this one 4.5 because it was an arc, but also because honestly, if we hadn't talked about his dick so much, I still would have been very into the sexy time. Like I said, I'm into how obsessed he is with her woman's curves and her mom bod. Like, I was into that so much. But, like, his dick just had too much of a life of its own. So I literally took half a star off because of how much his dick was talked about. This was a 5 on the spice scale. It's not, like, super, super kinky besides the breast part of it, but the amount of sex they have in the second half of this needed to have a 5 star. So there we go. Or 5 chili peppers. So there we go. Those are all the books that I read and listened to in the past week. I will have all of them linked down below if you'd like to grab any of them. Make sure you check out my other links down below if you'd like to support the channel. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.